Anthony Ateek.
Well, I guess I don't need to read the first card on here because she already did most of it. But yeah, she said, my name is Anthony. I play in a melodic peace punk band from St. Petersburg called Spanish Needles. I am the curator of Handbills and Ticket Stubs, which is an Instagram site that's dedicated to documenting old Florida punk rock, old Florida punk shows, and old Florida punk bands. And as she mentioned, I am a 5th grade teacher across the bridge and over the water in St. Pete. I guess that's that way at that point. And as she said, yeah, today I'm going to talk about punk rock broadly, but more specifically, I'm going to talk about how that community, the punk and hardcore community, has impacted my life. But first, allow me to introduce the inimitable Norval Alleman. He is doing the musical component of this today. He is an engineer and he's owner of Norval Sound, which is a recording studio, and he's also plays guitar in a couple bands, The Curse and Human Air. Give it up for him, please. Okay, so here we go. The teacher in me is going to get you all to do an icebreaker now. So we're going to give you about a minute and a half to turn to your shoulder partner, and you're going to introduce yourself and say good morning to them, and then you all are going to list off as many punk rock bands as you can, and you could start now.
Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh.
Okay, to bring it on back, when I say hey ho, you all say let's go. Hey ho. That wasn't good enough. Hey ho. Better. Hey, ho. Okay, so let's hear what you all said. I'll take a show of hands. Who has some ideas of punk rock bands? Anybody? You in the blue hat. Oh, that's true. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, I'll take it. Yes. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, so being the awkward Lebanese and Spanish kid who was also diagnosed with ADHD, it wasn't easy for me, especially in school. So I tended to gravitate toward what was historically called the losers and the freaks and the weirdos and the geeks and all those people. And then ultimately, because of it, punk rock became my escape and my community and my safe place. But some of you may be asking, what is punk? And because it honestly is more than music. And if you were going to ask 100 punks what punk is, you're going to get 100 different interpretations. For some people, it would be the cartoon fun of like the Ramones, like you just heard. For others, it's short, fast, and loud like Napalm Death or Siege. For me, it was everything on the spectrum of punk rock and everything in between. And my love for that all started because of cable television. This a little kid glued to music television, MTV, and this is back when MTV still played music. For some of you, you have no clue what that means. For others of you, you do know what that means. So between Michael Jackson videos and Duran Duran videos, I came across this band that you just heard, The Clash, and that song that you just heard, Rock the Casbah. Now, at that point in my life, being a little kid, I had no clue who The Clash were, and I had no clue what Rock the Casbah meant. I just knew that they looked cool as hell, especially Paul Simonon, the bass player. And the very next day that I was introduced to The Clash, my dad took me to Shalimar in the mall. Now, some of you may know Shalimar is just a jewelry store, but back in the day when I was a little kid, they sold things like Fat Boy shoelaces and spiked bracelets. And my dad bought me my first spiked bracelet, and it's somewhere at my house collecting dust to this day. Yet, as a child, my focus shifted back to being a kid, and which was collecting baseball cards and garbage pail kids until about middle school. So an older friend of mine and my cousin back there, Chrissy, our friend Brad used to wear this shirt to church all the time. And I didn't know what a social distortion was, and I didn't know what they sounded like at that point as a kid. I just knew that skeleton with a martini glass looked cool, and it looked dangerous. And then Brad ultimately, because I kept pestering him because I was a little brat, Brad ultimately gave me the shirt. I still have it somewhere. It's huge. I can't wear it. It's like the size of a moo-moo. And he gave me a Social D tape and a Pixies tape. And at that point, it was hook, line, and sinker. It had me. But it would still be years before Junction Pizza and Janice Landing and Blue Chair Records and Club Detroit would become my second homes.
There's no return from innocence.
So casual listener and active participant are two distinctly different things. I was a casual listener at this point, but I would eventually become an active participant, especially after this band broke big on the aforementioned MTV Green Day. Now, after getting into Green Day, I started to dig a little bit deeper. I started to read zines like No Idea Fanzine from Gainesville, Florida. I got my first guitar, and then I started to understand the ethics behind punk rock. And there are many ethics behind it. So the scene that gave birth to Green Day, Berkeley, the East Bay punk scene, they were influenced in part by other punk rock scenes like Washington, D.C.'s punk rock scene and L.A.'s punk rock scene. And then they ultimately would be influential on like other burgeoning scenes, like the one that was in Tampa at back in the day, and also, Gainesville. And some of those ethics that punks abided by were like DIY, do it yourself. Not like the Home Depot do it yourself. You're not putting in your own toilet, but like do it yourself. Like back in the olden days when major labels wouldn't release records by punk rock bands, the bands got savvy. They either, pressed and released their own records and distributed them independently, or independent labels did that. So because of it, they were very self-reliant. And then other things that they released on their own were like fanzines. For those of you that don't know what a fanzine is, it's exactly as it sounds. It is a magazine written by fans of music. And another thing that really attracted me to them was the fact that they held shows in unconventional venues, like living rooms and basements and record stores and community centers. There was a record store down the road from here. It's now Buffalo Wild Wings. But it was called Blue Chair Records. That had shows there. The room you're in right now, I saw Superchunk here. So one of the venues that is most known that had a big impact on my life was a venue that they started in East Bay called 924 Gilman Street. It's a community center, it's DIY run, and it's still going 30 years later. And I continued to absorb it all, I continued to learn, and I continued to grow. You know what I just realized in looking at this picture? The cabinet is the same cabinet I have. Yeah, the tan one. Sorry, that's sidetrack. Again, ADHD. So from bands like you just heard, Fugazi, I learned that things need not be explicitly political, and it's in order to be viewed through a political lens. And this guy right there, jumping off the ground, Ian MacKaye, he famously said that the political is personal, and in my opinion, in my view, the opposite is true. The political is personal, and the personal is political. In other words, it's the little things in life that can make big impacts on things. And because of it, I realized, it's time for me to give back to the community that gave so much to me, and which brings us here. The worst picture ever. And that's a good morning to you. Worst picture ever, by the way. That's from a newspaper, and I truly hate it, but Bree made me put pictures of myself in it, so here we go. So at some point, I started to play in bands. I mainly play guitar. I did play trumpet in one band, and that will not go talked about. But those bands ultimately began to start touring, and it wasn't like glamorous touring. We weren't in like big buses or anything like that. We didn't have huge food spreads backstage. We toured in hot, cramped, sweaty vans with no air conditions. Our food was from a gas station if we could afford it, and it was like usually a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But it was the experience of riding around in a hot, cramped, sweaty van with your friends and being able to go visit other states and other cities. That was just like, that was a life-changing experience for me. That picture right there, it is a collective-run info shop and venue that my friends and I opened. It was called CORE. I can't remember what CORE stands for at this point. I do remember that we were going to name it something after George Orwell, but I don't know what happened with that. At any rate, CORE was largely based off of the aforementioned Gilman Street. It was also influenced by other info shops around the country, like CMC in Gainesville, like Lucy Parsons Center in Boston. You signed up for a membership. You were able to check out the books. You were able to check out zines. You were able to check out pamphlets. We held classes there on screen printing and other practical things. And we saw all sorts of different bands. That also became a cook space for a little while for Food Not Bombs. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Food Not Bombs, is an organization that serves free vegetarian food to people in need. And at that point in my life, I tended to make the decision to become a teacher.
No one will hire you. Good after the 5 minutes and no one knows your life. But no one cares about you. But I do. But I do. But I do. But I do.
So I know what you're thinking, but punk rock's anti-authority, and you're a teacher, and you're a hypocrite, and you're right. I guess I kind of am. And it is what it is, but guess what? Everybody's got to put food on their table, and everybody has got to be able to survive, and everybody has got to be able to do these things. And in my view, teaching was a constructive way to make an impact on the world and to show that I actually gave a damn about something and be able to put food on my table at the same time. I viewed my place in the world at that point as one of guidance, which allowed me to do more than just teach the kids. It allowed me to try to do other things. And in turn, it gave the kids the opportunity to be whoever they wanted to be, within reason, within the school's rules and stuff like that. But if they wanted to be a weirdo, who am I to sit there and hold them back from that? I mean, I was a weirdo and still am. So it is what it is in that case. But the punk rock aspect of it, I guess, is aside from letting the kids be whoever they were. We made zines in there, and I, printed them off on the school copier. We screen printed our own covers and for the zines. And then it tended to give the kids a permission structure to ask difficult questions, which, is really important to them. But that experience in the classroom, along with all the other experiences of all my other comrades and the other teachers in classrooms, it got me interested in union organizing. Let's be honest, we go through a lot as teachers. So the union organizing aspect gave me a platform to be able to substantively impact everybody's life. It doesn't matter in my district if you're a union member or not. If it's in the contract, it's in the contract. And that gave me the opportunity to be able to impact people's lives positively all across the whole district, thousands of people in that case. So suffice it to say, protest is at the core of punk rock. that protest doesn't have to all look the same, but because of it, activism plays a large role in punk rock, and ultimately it played a large role in my life as well. Be that at a Taco Bell protest, Dustin knows what I'm talking about. Or be that with working within the community, or be that with doing Food Not Bombs. And Food Not Bombs, I talked about it a few moments ago, it ultimately highlighted the connections between, like, for example, arms productions, weapons productions, and violence within the society, and then violence within the society to homelessness within the society. And it was an attempt. Who's to say it was successful? Who's to say it wasn't successful? But ultimately, it was an attempt to try to tend to break that cycle, or to try to get people to understand more about that cycle. It also tended to highlight to me, like, the biggest color divide, which in my view in this society, which is green. In other words, those who have the green and who do not have the green, which that in turn led me to become not just in the union, but it led me to become the site-based union rep at my school. And then that also led me to become to join the collective bargaining committee at my school, which now I'm able to go ahead and I'm able to help either rewrite or fix parts of the contract that will impact everybody across the district. And, like, I don't just have to just sit there and complain and go, golly, I wish we didn't have to go to this training today. I could actually help codify that into the contract. And that's largely all because of everything that I've gotten from this.
There's no lesson for today. But this is not real to fucking good. My cloud always had a sail by lightning. My love for everything that I say. My will is what the part that one could never ever hurt me. My blood always had a silver lining. I love everything that I say.
By the way, one of the greatest bands to ever come out of the East Bay area, along with Green Day. That's Filth. So if you want to look it up, you'll love it. If you hated it, you'll hate it. Anyway, so punk is more than just going to shows. It's finding that community and your set of friends. And a lot of the people that I've met within the punk community have been friends of mine for now half my life. It's rooting for the underdog. It's coping with tragedy and sadness, and unfortunately, that's an affect of punk rock. There's a lot of tragedy and there's a lot of sadness within punk rock, and it's kind of, it comes with having the spiked belt and the studded jacket and the leather jacket. That's part of it, is tragedy and sadness. But at any rate, it's dignity, it's respect, it's breaking free of echo chambers. It's not just chasing power, but creating power. It's an old anecdote that a lot of us who are in the punk rock community can relate to, that if somebody falls down in the pit, you pick them back up and you help them back up.
Together with crew, everything is falling apart. Look what punk's done to you. You all dressed up, a steampunk cartoon. I don't want to be the one to tell ya. Look what punk's done to you.
So beyond all that, I learned about humility, and I learned about not taking yourself too seriously. And there is nothing more humbling than driving in the snow and in the ice in the middle of winter from Columbus, Ohio to Chattanooga, Tennessee, 500 miles or so, to play in a dank and musty basement. A dank and musty basement in which I lost my voice within the first 30 seconds of singing the first song of that show, in which we got paid $30, not in crisp dollar bills, but in pocket change and loose packets of emergency. That is a very humbling and humbling experience, and you learn that, hey, you're not a rock star. So, beyond all that, if you are interested in anything that I talked about, You could check out the band I'm in, Spanish Needles, and you could check out handbills and ticket stubs, the flyer page. You would. And yes, Norval just played my band's music because he likes to torment me. But you can check them out both on Instagram and at Bandcamp. The Bandcamp site has the music streaming as well as available for download. Not that I'm trying to sell you a shirt right now or a record, but that option is there should you want to take it. Which brings us to one last thing. Bree asked me to come up with a handful of actionable things that you all could do right now after you leave these doors to flex your newfound punk rock muscle. One thing you could do is all of you were sitting down on a list, and there's other lists that are the other side of the list on the back tables. And that list is of punk or punk adjacent owned businesses. Definitely support one or all of them. My wife and I go to many of those places all the time, and they're all pretty great places. Another thing you could do is research Food Not Bombs and find a local chapter. I know for sure St. Petersburg has one. I am fairly certain, but not 100%, that Tampa has one. Find it, support them. They could always take donations, but more importantly, volunteer with them. It's more pressing now than ever, probably. Coming from little Anthony, listen to the freaks and the weirdos and the geeks and the nerds and the losers, because underneath that gruff exterior, there's a lot there. And if you're in the area on August 9th, this is our next show that's coming up. We're playing with 4 other bands. It's at Noisemakers Music in St. Pete. But there's going to be a lot of local organizations and local organizers there, and on hand they'll be answering questions, and a lot of the stuff that I talked about today in practice will be there. And I lied because now is the last one. I want to dedicate this to Ivy and Mimi and Leroy. Ivy and Mimi are 2 of the strongest women I've ever met in my life, and they both pushed me far and hard in life. For Ivy, I will let it pass that you tried to get me in a fight with some Russian dude in a Savannah venue when I was on tour with her. If it wasn't for Mimi, I probably never would have met my wife in the first place. So Mimi did that for me when I was hanging out getting a haircut at her old store called Star Booty. And then for Leroy, he and I made up some pretty awful songs that I still sing in my head to this day. And those of you who knew Leroy, you probably know what I'm talking about. So thank you guys.
Don't go anywhere just yet, Anthony. Do we have any questions? Some punk rock questions?
Yeah, please, by all means, if you have any questions, ask them.
Oh, well, let me bring the mic to you so we can just capture them on the audio.
Can we hear more about the trumpet, please?
I was in a ska band called Hopscotch, and I was a really good trumpet player, but I just never practiced. And my time in that band was miserable. They were all like, what were they? They were all, cops and lawyers? Wasn't that? Yeah, so all the members except for the horn section, they were all cops and lawyers, and they were far older than me, and I was like, oh, this is, yeah. You can't find their music online, which is fantastic.
I have one. Before I have one, it's more important to hear from the crowd.
Because the audience is a lot younger than us, could you help them understand the difference between punk versus grunge?
Grunge was an offshoot of punk rock. It was just like indie rock is an offshoot of punk rock. It's just like college rock is an offshoot, or hardcore is an offshoot. It was just another evolutionary wing from punk rock. It took metal, it took punk rock, and it was about metal and punk rock. Yeah. So I'm not a huge fan of grunge. I'm a fan of the bands that came before grunge, though, like the Wipers. Absolutely.
There was a slide you had couple slides ago that had a newspaper clip or a clipping on it that had some phrases, and it was from a student of yours. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. It was so this year I had the opportunity to oh God, I can't remember the name of it now. To loop. Yeah, I had the opportunity to loop up from 4th grade to 5th grade, and I with about half the students that I had in 4th grade. And so for all those students that I had in 4th grade and then again in 5th grade, I wrote a letter to them, and this is just part of it. And only the people who had looped up with me got the letter. So I had like 46 students last year between 2 classes, and of those 47, 10 of them got this. And it was, just a letter of saying thank you to the parents for trusting me to be their kid's teacher again this year. And then, these 3 things that I tended to pound in their head all the time, taking care of that's actually number 1. I stole that from Joe Madden, the former manager of the Cubs. When you take care of the seconds, the minutes, and the hours, the days, the weeks, and the months take care of themselves. Last year, not this year, I did a few times play Andrew WK, Party Hard, and that's what inspired number 2, work hard and celebrate your successes just as hard. And then finally, number 3, I stole that from Dr. Seuss, which is, we are all a little weird, but life's a little weird, and there's nothing wrong with being who you are. And that's something that those 3 things I tried to convey to the classes those last 2 years.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah.
Any other burning questions? Oh, great. You know what?
She has the mic.
Yeah. I'm wondering, as a teacher and all the mentoring opportunities that you probably had along the way, is there one that stands out to you where you really got to see the fruits of your impact on a young person's life?
Yes and no. Like, the weird part of so if you work at a restaurant, you could instantly see that, oh man, I killed it on tonight's dinner. You could see the the happiness on a diner's face. Or if you are on a baseball team, you hear the cheers when there's a home run, or you swipe first, or you swipe second from first, or something along those lines. Teaching is a little bit different because you don't really necessarily see that impact until years down the road. But yeah, I do have I have other students. I have a student that follows me on my personal Instagram page, Maria, and she graduated with her master's degree from UT not too long ago, and she keeps in touch with me, so I'm able to keep tabs to see how far some of the kids go. But oftentimes parents will say thank you and things along those lines, and it's those little things like that. Since I'm not going to see for another 14 years what happens with the student, it's those little things that are okay, yeah, I know I did a decent job. Decent, not great.
Thank you. That was terrific. I'm assuming that if you loved punk back in the day, that you might still love it today,
yeah.
Even if you don't know the names of the bands. But what are you seeing an older audience at your concerts? The sense of rebellion and renewal and redemption is, crazy right now, and I think people are looking for that.
I think one of the funniest things, my wife and I were talking about one day, is that all the songs that I had listened to as a little kid, my mom is repeating the lyrics to them now, unwittingly and unintentionally. She doesn't realize it. It's oh, that's the stuff we were talking about a long time ago. Yeah, the older people that tend to be at shows might be in our peer group, but there's a decent mix of stuff of generations at our shows, I guess. Never played a protest or anything like that, so I don't know how it translates in that case. But yeah,
Thank you.
It's there.
And what does your T-shirt say?
It is a band, a Moroccan band called Takbir, and it says, "Victory belongs to those who fight for a right cause."
Thank you.
And you could also turn it inside out and wear it one of the ninja head coverings we used to do when we were kids, because it has this written on which would be on the forehead. So, handy for trick-or-treating too. No. Absolutely not.
Hey, I think you're originally from St. Pete, is that right? Can you talk a little bit about the history of St. Pete, the history of punk rock in St. Pete and Tampa?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, it's hard. There were the earlier bands, Rat Cafeteria, Pagan Faith. Those are mainly Florida bands in general. Tampa and St. Pete, I guess you could lump them together with just like all of Florida punk rock, because like if we're talking about like in the early 80s, it was far and wide, and everybody would tend to gravitate towards certain areas. My cousin could probably talk better about this than I could, Chrissy. But so those were like the forefathers. They tended to lead to bands like Pink Lincolns and Assuck, because of Pink Lincolns and Assuck, those were really the first two Florida bands. Maybe Roach Motel too. Those were like the first three bands that actually like laid the groundwork for everybody. The whole what's the old saying that we walked so that you could run? Like they were the proverbial bands that did that. They were the first bands from Florida that toured and made connections outside of the state or within the state and stuff along those lines. And because of that, like the bands that came along further after them, your Less Than Jake's, your Against Me's, your other Florida, your Hot Water Music Seas bands, they were able to utilize like the inroads and the connections that all these bands had made between different cities and different scenes in order to be able to play shows. In that, there were just more venues than I could count that were like open one day and gone the next minute. Like Junction Pizza in St. Pete, that was like a big staple. The Refuge in St. Pete, that was a big staple. Some of you are old enough to remember Club Detroit. That was a huge staple. Janus Landing's still around. State Theater was around. In Tampa, you're sitting in an old venue. Down the road where Buffalo Wild Wings is, that was Blue Chair Records. Directly behind Buffalo Wild Wings was Gallery Film House. I'm trying to orient myself. That away was New World Brewery. That away was the Orpheum. What's that? Oh yeah, Star Club. Yeah, and Paint Factory. Yeah, that was next to Oxford Exchange. Dustin and I were talking about there was another like fly-by-night venue like right down the road, right over there. I can't remember the name. The Ritz, which was the Masquerade. The band, like it's just wild. Like the venues, they come and then they go just as quickly, and they make it like a huge like impact, and then they go away. Gainesville had always been more of a bigger like DIY community than Tampa or St. Pete. Tampa or St. Pete was like largely a transient community. Like when kids got old enough to get out of Tampa Bay, they got out of Tampa Bay. Like same thing with like South Florida, and a lot of them moved up to Gainesville. There were a lot more DIY venues and like house shows and shows at like Wayward Council and the Hardback Cafe and stuff along those lines in Gainesville. But yeah, I mean, that's a very brief and clustered summary of Florida punk rock stuff.
All right, we got one more. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. My question is, what inspires your music, and has it changed since when you first started music versus now?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you first start playing trumpet in a ska band and you're writing like happy-go-lucky songs, I guess. It's like bubbly and bouncy. When I write music, I try to be like a blank palette for which to like have the influences throw on me. But like lyrically, like I try to write stuff that's very general, but I know exactly what I'm talking about in my head, and it's usually like working class lyrics type of things. But it's very general in the way that, like, if somebody else listened to it, they might get a completely different, like, point of view or a perspective of what I'm saying. Like the song he played, that's about being in a union, but you might not know that. You might think it's about, like, a relationship gone wrong or something along those lines. So, yeah, I like being general. I think that's more universal in that sense, that, it's going to age a little bit better than some other lyrics. But yeah, I mean, like by and large, just whatever stuff I'm listening to, and then I try to write something that's meaningful. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, give it up for Anthony, our punk speaker.